You might have noticed the big lie is back, although truthfully it never went away. Just 5 years after the violent Capitol insurrection, MAGA is pushing another equal parts deranged and idiotic election conspiracy theory, this time centered on California.
That's how they count the votes.
You know why they're doing that? Because they're
California.
cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
All I have to do is look.
They are still counting the votes. Do you trust this election?
That seems pretty shady to me.
I think California is playing around with us.
But what evidence is there to prove that there was rigged?
Look, some of these efforts are so diabolical and so far upstream it is impossible to prove. But I think everybody knows instinctively something is wrong here.
No. No one, not everyone knows it instinctively because there's nothing wrong here with the California's primary. They're counting the votes. They're counting the votes, by the way, as our own Jacob Sobras has shown, in a room with glass panels so you can watch them do it. It's not fraud. The case Republicans are making, it's impossible to prove, so trust their instincts, is manifestly preposterous and absurd. But again, so was Trump's big lie in 2020 and 2021, right? I mean, it's essentially identical. And look what happened. Look what that led to on January 6th. And this case looks, to me, like it is setting the table to invalidate midterm results in November if Republicans perform as badly as expected. Yesterday, Trump's first assistant U.S. attorney for Central California went on Glenn Beck's podcast, of all places, to promise investigations and charges for voter fraud in the state's primary, while also asking listeners to offer evidence of voter fraud, because, of course, he doesn't actually have any. Carol Leonnig is a senior investigative reporter with MS Now, co-author of Injustice, How Politics and Fear Vanquished America's Justice Department, a timely book. As we discuss this, she joins me now. Good to have you here.
Great to be here, Chris.
So let's just, first I just want to sort of set for the table that there is, again, we don't have like universal windows into everything that has happened in this election, but there is zero evidence whatsoever. This is entirely ginned up. I also just want to say up front that, like, it doesn't make any sense as an election conspiracy theory. It was clearly the case that Karen Bass wanted to run against a Republican, Spencer Pratt, in a city that is like 75% Democratic, as opposed to a far more threatening challenger. Also, how did they rig it to lock out the Republicans from the mayoral, but not from the state, right? Like, none of this makes sense. What is the role that the Justice Department is now playing in this?
Well, I want to say, let me tell you all the ways, let me count the ways in which the Department of Justice is breaking its own rules, going back for a long, long time. Number one, an acting or de facto U.S. attorney, as Bill Essayli is in the Central District of California, doesn't announce he's going to investigate potential voter fraud. There were strong rules that you don't say you're investigating that unless you come up with the evidence and you bring the charges. Because in America, we used to not want to sow distrust in voting unless we had the goods. But instead, this person's going to go on Glenn Beck and say, we're going to investigate. And then ask people, number two, interesting norm buster, ask people for evidence. That's also something Department of Justice officials and FBI agents don't do. Crowdsource evidence.
On the internet.
That's super strange. Third thing in which we are counting the ways that these are a violation of either Department of Justice rules, prosecutor manuals, and norms about protecting our democracy. And that is that the acting, again, de facto U.S. attorney says he promises there's likely going to be charges. Who does that?
How can you do that?
Well,
I mean, it's not like there has to be facts and a crime. You can't say that before you've actually figured it out.
Well, when I heard and then reread with my own eyes the transcript from the Glenn Beck show, it just reminded me, as your setup so beautifully described, May of 2020, when Donald Trump is hearing that he's tanking in the polls, that he looks like a shambolic president who can't handle the pandemic. His Attorney General, Bill Barr, says, I'm getting a bad feeling. I think you're going to lose this election if you don't do something different. Donald Trump starts talking about how all this way we count votes, all the way ballots are stored, some are mailed in, it's likely to be fraud. I'm worrying about fraud. And that drumbeat begins as soon as he knows he's in the basement in terms of popularity.
I want to play just to give a taste of this is the sort of first assistant U.S. attorney who's sort of acting as a U.S. attorney, again, because they love actings and they love the Vacancy Reform Act, and no one ever gets confirmed and everyone's getting shoved in what position. Bill Essayli, here he is on Glenn Beck, just to give people a taste of what it sounded like. Take a listen.
I will just say it will be election fraud charges in the next, I hate to put timelines on things, but 1 to 2 months. I believe we need the some of these results to be certified so we can prove some of the allegations. But we will be charging some people. What we need right now are witnesses. If you saw someone collecting ballots in a suspicious way or doing something odd with ballots, we want to know about that.
Again, I mean, you've pointed out, but this is just no one that we have ever covered in our careers or lives has talked like this from that perch, right? I mean, that's a fair thing to say.
It's a totally fair thing to say. It's strange on the 3 elements that are gross violations. There are many, many others. We won't go into all of them tonight. But, Chris, I'm so glad you're focusing a lens on this because it is part of a broader thing going inside the Trump administration that I'm hearing from sources, both investigators and administration officials who are disturbed by this. And that broader plot is anybody who wants to please the king starts parroting that there's fraud. Right. I'm going to open an investigation of fraud. There's likely fraud. This is, forgive me, I just am spilling my tea over here. So acting U.S. attorneys or de facto ones or ones who want to get the job permanently or, for example, our acting attorney general begin announcing, I think there's fraud.
We should also say, because I started with January 6th, is that one of the crucial parts of the January 6th plot that didn't end up happening was an effort to essentially install a Trump loyalist in the Department of Justice to issue a letter from the Department of Justice announcing with the official seal of the Department of Justice and imprimatur that there was suspicion of fraud in Georgia and other states. They're going to send them out to a bunch of states saying, you are hereby just don't, your results are essentially not real. And it came this close to them sending it out, and it would have wildly changed things if it weren't for people inside the Justice Department said, hell no, over our dead bodies.
There were 9, count them 9, top senior Department of Justice officials who swarmed on a Sunday night to the Oval Office to convince Donald Trump they'd all resign and that Passelmore would. And that
it would blow up in his face, so it's not worth doing. He didn't back off because he thought they were right and he was wrong. It was just that it would be too bad.
The Deputy Attorney General said to the person you're referencing, Jeff Clark, we're not going to do this. Everyone's going to resign if we do this. And you should go back to what you actually know, which is if there's an oil spill, we'll call you.
Yeah, exactly. So just a reminder that they tried this play. They didn't have the people in position to be able to pull it off from the head of DOJ. This time around, as we see, you really got to think about what that looks like with this personnel, particularly as we see what's happening in California. Carol Leonnig, always great to have you here.